and today's video is going to be an explanation of how we built our newest hamster cage. So we did construct this cage around Christmas time of last year. I do have a video of us building the cage, which I will link for you guys below, but we've just had a really busy year here. We're finally coming to the end of our basement renovations. Our basement wasn't finished in the new house that we moved in to, so we've spent the last 4 months building walls and finishing the entire thing. So it's been a really big job for Mr. BB and I. So now that we're coming to the end of it, I'm finally getting a chance to catch up on some of the videos that are well overdue, and this is one of them. So originally we built this cage for our hamster Scarlet. She is featured in a lot of my previous hamster videos, including the building the new hamster cage video, but Scarlet did pass away in February of 2015. So this now houses our hamster Aurora. She is in the top left corner. She's woken up, I guess, because I'm in here. She is an absolute cutie pie. I still need to do a proper adoption story video on her, which I hope to get done soon for you guys. But this cage is a 16-inch by 49-inch cage, which offers 789 square inches of floor space. And we've also made that very small second level there on the top left. That's where Rory is now. And I do apologize if there's any glare. It's really hard because the whole front is plexiglass to film this properly for you guys without having any glare, especially because I need to have the lights on just so that it's bright enough to see into the cage. This cage is constructed out of plexiglass and melamine. My husband and I did build this cage ourselves, and we took a lot of the same steps that we did while building our newest guinea pig cage, except of course that we had to make it more of an aquarium type cage just so that it's safe for our hamster and escape proof. And we also did leave some extra space at the bottom because I did want to have some storage area. I do hope to eventually have little organizing bins down there, but I just haven't found the right ones yet. So there are a few things that I want to mention. The first is that this cage did take a lot of heavy-duty power tools in order to make it. So if you are unfamiliar with these tools or under the age of 18, please get someone who is handy and knows how to use them properly to do it for you. The other thing you can do, I think it's the first 10 cuts are included with your purchase at Home Depot. So for all of our initial cuts, that's what we did. We actually measured out what size we wanted our cage, and then we had them cut the big pieces of melamine accordingly. The melamine sheet is quite large, so we wouldn't have been able to fit it in our vehicle anyways without having it cut down first. So it just saved us a lot of time when we got home to have it done properly. And the next thing is that this cage was not cheap to build. It probably cost us about $150. If you aren't that handy and you're looking for a suitable hamster cage, I highly recommend the Detolf that you can purchase at IKEA. It's actually a clear storage unit, but people put them on their sides and leave out the shelves, and it makes a great hamster cage. It actually provides a little more space than this cage does here. I know Sherwood Small Pets uses one, Carrie's Little Piggies, and Aaron's Animals. So one reason that I decided that the Detolf wasn't the right cage for us was because you're fixed in the size it is. So it's a really long shelving unit and it's kind of narrow, and ideally you would want to put that onto a shelving system called the Kallax, I believe, and which looks really great. It provides shelving, gets your cage off of the floor, but by the time I bought the shelving unit and the Detolf itself, then I was going to be looking at about the price that we paid to make this cage. And for me, the length of the Detolf and the shelving unit really restrict where I could put it in the house. I needed a wall that was going to be that big. If I ever wanted to move it, I was really limited on where else I could fit something that size. in my house. So that's why we decided to build our own custom cage. And the other reason was that if you remember when I walked you through how we built our guinea pig cage, I had mentioned that I had wanted that one piece of plexiglass for the front of the cage to be one long piece, but that meant buying a really large sheet of plexiglass, and I only used, other than the length of it, the front of that cage is only 6 inches high, so we had quite a large amount of plexiglass left. So we thought, why not put that to good use and use it for our hamster cage, which also saved us some money building this cage. So the minimum requirement in North America for a hamster is 360 square inches. Personally, having had hamsters throughout my life, starting with like critter trails and stuff like that, and then going to different DIY cages, including bin cages, and then I had kind of that NIC cage with the mesh over top. I just keep increasing in size because I found that the 582 square inch cage that I used to have didn't seem to be big enough. So I actually don't find that this is overly large for a hamster. Our previous cage was 582 square inches or 542 square inches, and I really do find that Aurora uses every inch of this cage. And she wants out. Like, she is very, very busy. She loves to have floor time as well and explore. So I really feel like this is a suitable size for a hamster cage. And after building our bunny pens and our guinea pig cage, we've kind of become experts. This really only took us maybe a day to build, but it's the aquarium sealant that really takes a long time. It slows you down because you do have to wait for it to dry. So we used melamine for the majority of this cage, and you can buy really large sheets of melamine for about, I think it was $30 at Home Depot, so it's really cost effective. The only really expensive part of this cage, like I said, was the plexiglass, but we had the piece left over from the guinea pig cage, which really helped to alleviate some of the financial costs with this. But what we did was we had Home Depot cut our large pieces of melamine so we could fit it in the car, and just so it made less work for us when we got home. So what Mr. Beebe did was he began by assembling the pieces, and he would just drill a hole through to hold the back and side together, and then he would insert a screw. And all these are right here are little white screw caps. They just hide the screws so it has a little more of a polished look. So after creating the outer frame just by drilling holes and screwing all of the pieces of melamine together, he measured out these bottom pieces here. So what he did was he just took his measuring tape and he equally measured this bottom piece into thirds, and then he cut suitable pieces of melamine and again just drilled them into place. So that's what created these little sections at the bottom here, and it's also helping to hold the floor of Rory's cage up. So then we created a base that's the floor of Rory's cage. So all he did was he took that piece of melamine, slid it right in over top of the shelves, and then of course drilled holes to secure it in place along the sides, pop in some screws, and then we put the screw caps on top of that. Now to hold the plexiglass, we used the exact same materials as the guinea pig cage. We found this right angled white edging, again at Home Depot, and that created a little shelf that just slid right in front of the melamine and allowed us to slide in the plexiglass. So once we had that corner edging on and we slid our piece of plexiglass that we had already cut to size in place, then all we had to do were drill holes along the front, and that allowed us to secure both the edging and the plexiglass into place. Then you can also see that he ran another strip of this edging up each side, and secured that with screws as well. Just show you from the top here. So you can see here is that white edging, that 90-degree corner. Here is the plexiglass and here is the melamine. So he has just screwed this into place as well. And you can see that's just made the plexiglass front nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. So that worked out perfectly. So just to fill in these gaps, because we didn't get the little corners 100%, I just used some white caulking. There's no way she can access this because this is the outside of the cage, which is why it's perfectly safe to use. If you're doing anything on the inside of the cage, you want to make sure it's pet safe, which is why I used aquarium sealant to seal the edges of the inside of the cage. Hi Rory, we're just showing everyone your house. You're so cheeky. You are, you're a busy lady. Yes you are, you're so busy. So unfortunately it is really hard to see, but all along the edges I have used aquarium sealant. And you can pick this up at any pet store really. I found mine at PetValu. Any fish specialty store like Big Al's would definitely have it as well. It's about $10 a tube, but basically what this does is seals off your edges so that they're water resistant. And it's really good to do, especially in the bottom corners of your cage where your pet might want to use the toilet. So Rory's favorite spot, as you can see, is this corner right in here. So this is all protected. So even though she's peed on the shavings and everything right here and moved it into this corner, that acts as a waterproof barrier so that none of that urine can soak into the inside of the melamine and ruin the wood. And melamine is a great material to use for pet cages because it is fairly economical, but that white coating it has does offer some water resistance to it, and it makes it easily wipeable. So as opposed to using something like wood or untreated pine, where as soon as it gets urinated on, it's going to absorb that odor into it. This allows you to easily wipe and clean it. Of course, with a hamster, you're going to have at least a couple inches of bedding on the bottom like we do here, which will also help to stop urine from getting right onto the base of it, because obviously if it does get saturated with water, it can bubble. But overall, it's really durable. So with all of this cutting, you will end up with unfinished edges. And basically the melamine is like particle board inside. So to finish off edges like that, you can purchase something called melamine tape. And all it is a tape that when heated up, usually you use an iron on it. You just roll the melamine tape over top of the edge, go over it slowly with the iron, and that heats up the glue that's on the other side and melts it into place. And then you just take a X-Acto knife, because the tape is usually a little wider than the melamine, and cut off any additional tape. So that's what we did to finish off any unfinished edges. I'll also show you the lid here before I move to the inside of the cage. So a big thing that we did need to keep in mind were our cats. Our cats love to watch the hamster play, and we wanted to make sure that there was absolutely no way that our hamster could get out of this cage, and there was no way that the cats could get in. So a lot of people that have other pets in the house or are worried about their hamster escaping will make a mesh covering for the top of their aquarium if they're using like a tank for their hamster. Or if they're using the Detolf, I've seen people make mesh lids for that as well. My concern was that sometimes my cats would jump on top of our old cage, and I worried that with too much weight on there, the mesh might sag, which would look kind of unprofessional. Or the other thing I was worried about was that with their weight, the mesh or staples, however we attached it, might actually give out overnight one time, and then the cat then has access to our hamster. So what Mr. Beebe actually did was he cut out 2 pieces of melamine so it's nice and sturdy. I'll show you right here. So you can see just how thick this melamine is, so it's nice and sturdy. But the other things we needed to take into consideration were ventilation, because obviously you cannot have 100% closed off cage or your hamster isn't going to be able to breathe. And also accessibility for me, because one of these lids is actually quite heavy. If we had done this in one solid piece, that would have been really heavy for me to open and close. And also I rarely need to access the entire cage at once. So Mr. BB attached these heavy duty hinges just to the back of the cage and the top, just so that the lid opens really nice and easy. The other thing that he did were attach these handles, just again to make it nice and easy to open. So then what we did to make sure there was lots of ventilation into the cage was use the circular drill bit to drill out 18 holes. And Mr. BB just measured them out so that when he cut, it would be nice and even on the cage. And to finish that off, we cut out a piece of mesh. This is the smallest mesh that we could find. This is actually a scrap left over from our old cage. I'll just show you guys. We used the staple gun to staple it firmly into place. So there's no way this could get pulled up. Even if she did manage to get up there, there's absolutely no way that she could bust through the mesh because it's firmly in place. We really wanted to make sure, of course, that not only did this cage provide a sufficient amount of space, but that it's also safe and secure for her. Mr. BB did drill these holes. Of course, then we had this unfinished edge because you've gone through the melamine. So what I did was I just used some white paint and painted the inside of each one just so that it's a little less obvious. Now, this again is safe to use because the paint is on the outside of the cage where Aurora does not have access to it. You can see the mesh is because it's on the inside below the circle here, so there's absolutely no way that she could get there and chew it. Now ideally we'd love to have something to kind of finish off those circles, and we actually found the perfect thing. They're the little white circular caps that you can get so that when you drill a hole into your desk, you put that on it and then put your electronic cords through to finish it off, just so that again you don't have this unfinished piece going through your desk. Those looked great. We actually picked one up, but the problem is they're about $2.50 each, and we do have 18 holes here, so we're hoping maybe we can find a cheaper alternative on Amazon, but something like that would give it a perfect finished look if that's what you were looking for. You can also see on the lids we used that same corner edging. That just provided a little more sturdiness, especially at the front of the cage where the plexiglass top meets the melamine, and it also really finished it off. And you can see it's nice and solid because it is melamine, so if a cat gets up here, it's no big deal. I can put my full weight on it and it doesn't move at all, and that was kind of the point. We wanted something that was really sturdy and really secure. Now the other thing that I wanted were feet for the bottom of the cage. This is just to get it off the ground a little bit. It also makes it a lot easier to move because you have now a lip where you can pick it up from and shift it. So these again were purchased at Home Depot. You can just buy packs of them, and we used 5 of them. We used 2 on either end, and then there's one in the middle just to give it extra support because it is kind of a long cage. So it comes with the pieces, but basically the piece the foot slides into has these little holes where you just drill the hole and then put the screw in to secure that in place, and then I think you just twist the feet on. But I just like the fact that it got the cage a few inches off the ground, and it just makes it easier to move around after. So the other thing that I had Mr. BB do was actually add an additional shelf to the cage, and all he did for this was cut an additional piece of melamine. He screwed it into place. Now you can actually see the screws here because my dog Murray likes to pull off the white caps and eat them. I catch him chewing them all the time. So he's pulled these 3 off, which is why they're missing. We're gonna have to get replacement ones. But you can see that's how he attached it. He just drilled holes and inserted screws into the back and the side and the front just to make it nice and secure. And he also built this little shelf, again, just like he did with any additional levels in the guinea pig and bunny pens, just out of melamine, and also secured that to the back and the side of the cage just to make sure that it's nice and sturdy. It's not that Aurora weighs a lot, but we just would never want anything to start sagging or give way on them. And as you can see with the second level, I've just filled it up again with aspen shavings. There's a little hidey house, and but it just gives a little more space. So the other thing was that I wanted to be able to hang things like hammocks, but they would need a way to get into the hammock. So that was kind of the reason that I wanted an additional level. It just provides a little more space. Normally this is where Aurora has her nest, but she's chosen to do it in the bottom back corner this time around. And what we also did were attach these little eye hooks to the lid of the cage so that I can hang things like hammocks. So when the lid is closed, then the hammock would hang directly off of this level here so that she could easily get in and out of the hammock. Unfortunately, all my hammocks are currently in the pet laundry, so I don't have one hanging here right now to give you an example. But I'll also leave a link to my first cage tour of this cage when we first built it for Scarlet. And it shows you an example of what I'm talking about there, because I do have a hammock hanging from it.
And we also attached a couple of those same eye hooks on the bottom of the second level. That way I can also put hanging toys if I wanted there as well.
Now I'll just point this out because you may have noticed that you can see these holes here. This is not anything that Aurora has chewed. We didn't have the right length of screws to attach the hinges, and they actually came out through the melamine on the lid and the very back. We since adjusted that, and we also got screws that have a flat end so that no one could hurt themselves, because the other ones, not only did they go through, but it had like a little sharp point. So we had to redo that because we want to make sure that this is completely safe for Aurora. And so these are flat-ended screws, but the problem is really to seal these off, I would need to put on a layer of aquarium sealant, and aquarium sealant needs 48 hours to dry. I don't currently have somewhere else for Aurora to stay while I fix something like that up. So that's why it's a bit of an eyesore at the top of the cage, but it's not anything to worry about. It certainly doesn't affect her. I just wanted to point it out in case you noticed it in the video. So the other cool thing that Mr. BB did, the pack of circular drill bits he got actually had one that fit tubes perfectly. So what he did was he actually drilled a hole into the back of the second level so that we could attach a tube. And you can see that I've just constructed the tubes so that it comes all the way down through the hole, and she just has a bit of a maze here. She has options to go in and out of there. But that was how we safely connected the first and second levels. Lori's favorite place actually to wait when she's woken up is right here, because she just sits here with her little paws up and stares at me like, let me out, please.
Those eye hooks really come in handy for the wheel and water bottles. You guys may have seen these on the guinea pig cage, but again, it's the same thing. We kind of measured where we wanted the water bottle to sit, and then Mr. BB used his drill to drill very small holes in, and then all you do is you twist the eyelets into place so you can see. Then it gave us a spot to secure our water bottles to. And Rory has 2 water bottles in her cage. I put one kind of where she likes to nest, and then the other one's near her wheel. And again, you can see we did the exact same thing to secure her wheel safely into place.
So that is a bit of an overview of how Mr. BB and I constructed this cage. We've had this cage about 7 months now, and I absolutely love it. I am so happy with how it's held up. Rory seems to really enjoy having almost 800 square inches of floor space, which is amazing. It's really nice and sturdy and secure. I feel that she's safe in there while also having proper ventilation, and I absolutely love having the plexiglass front. I just feel like it's such a nice way to be able to interact with your pet and see your pet as opposed to looking through mesh or grids or cage wires. As you saw with some of the clips when she was eating, It's just so easy to be able to film right through the plexiglass. Of course, the only downside is that you do get some glare, especially when lights are on. So as you can see, I can see some of the things in the background. But overall, I'm just so happy with how this cage turned out. I hope that this answered any questions that you had about how we constructed the cage. If you haven't already, I suggest checking out the 2 videos I've left in the down bar, which are us building the cage. That might also help clear up some questions that you may still have, as well as my first cage tour of this cage. And make sure to leave any other questions or comments below. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.